As the story begins, there existed a great nation that boasted immense military power, the Descent Kingdom, ruled by King Farid III. By valuing the power of magic and nurturing countless skilled sorcerers, the kingdom had conquered numerous lands. At the core of this overwhelming strength stood the 7 court sorcerers, individuals whose extraordinary abilities were personally recognized by the king himself. Known as the 7 Masters, their fame had spread far and wide, both within the kingdom and beyond its borders. At the eastern frontier of the kingdom, within imperial territory known as Balks, stood the 35th Frontier Battalion stationed at the Teutoburg Great Forest frontline camp. There a young man examined several magic stones, remarking that, as expected of a Tempest Ogre's material, even a single fang contained tremendous magical power. He noted that once the magic stone was added, the effect would be even greater. At that moment a girl approached from behind and informed him that the Magic Tool Squad wanted the captain to inspect the items they had created. He replied that he would head over immediately. When he arrived and saw the materials, he became visibly excited. His name was Arnold von Eckenstein. He had been stationed in Balks, near the monster-infested Teutoburg Forest, serving in homeland defense for nearly 5 years. Approaching the team, he asked about their progress. One of the soldiers reported that the healing potions used during the previous battle had been successfully restocked and asked for his evaluation. Arnold responded that the quality was high and stable, and he could clearly tell that everyone's skills were improving. The man humbly replied that there had still been many failures along the way. Arnold explained that potion making required experience and precision, and suggested that he demonstrate the process himself. The entire group reacted in surprise upon hearing that the captain would personally show them. As Arnold activated his magic, one of the soldiers remarked that the purity of his magic was on a completely different level, stating that there was likely no mage in all of Descent who could rival him in the creation of magical tools. Suddenly, another girl rushed in and reported that there were injured members in the patrol squad. They hurried to the scene, where one injured girl apologized, admitting that she had let her guard down after assuming the enemy was merely a goblin. Arnold told her to let him treat her wounds, and as he used his magic, he remarked that the monsters of Balks were on an entirely different level compared to those in other regions. Even a single goblin would retaliate fiercely if underestimated. The girl responded that if only she were stronger, things might have been different. She had lost her family and, as a second-class citizen, had nowhere left to return to. That was why, even if it cost her life, she wanted to be of use to Captain Arnold and everyone else. Nearly all members of the 35th Frontier Battalion came from nations that had been conquered and absorbed into the Descent Kingdom. Given the status of second-class citizenship, many had been enlisted into military service. Arnold reflected that perhaps it was the same for all of them, having nowhere left to return to. And that was precisely why he had resolved never to lose a single member of his unit. They did not fight for the kingdom alone. The 35th Frontier Battalion fought together. Here, on the brutal battlefield of Varks, the title of one of the 7 Masters held no meaning at all. Arnold had realized that harsh truth the moment he was assigned here. Every day, they repelled powerful monsters, sacrificing comrades along the way, while everyone quietly wondered if tomorrow would be their own turn to die. Arnold could never forget the frustration of being unable to deny that reality. From that day onward, he stood on the front lines without rest, pushing both his magic and his body to their limits. He developed magical tools capable of turning the tide of battle. Though he could have declined a court position and lived comfortably as a magic tool artisan, he now felt that this life was not so bad. There was a happiness that could only be found here, a bond formed because the soldiers of the 35th Frontier Battalion believed in him and chose to follow him. The girl from earlier quickly took out her compass and reported that multiple signals had appeared within the alert zone. She identified them as ogre reactions. She questioned whether it was an attack, but Arnold denied it, explaining that their movement pattern was strange. At their current distance, he estimated they would reach the area in about 30 minutes. To prevent further casualties, he decided they should intercept the threat and ordered all squads to deploy. The soldiers responded in unison and moved out immediately. At the ogre's location, a knight stared in disbelief as his sword failed to cut through even a single one. He wondered what was happening in this forest, as his weapon was completely ineffective. Just as the ogre prepared to strike, a voice echoed from behind, remarking that if such a creature entered Valks with that level of equipment, it would be torn apart instantly. In the next moment, the ogre was sliced into pieces. The knight stood frozen in shock as Arnold stepped forward, commenting that the fang of a Tempest ogre truly was something special. He examined his blade and noted that even a light polish made it perfectly usable, wondering aloud whether adding rare magic stones would enhance it further. Soon after, a girl called out to Arnold, informing him that the situation on her side had been resolved. The ogres had all been defeated. She added that they appeared to be remnants led by the Tempest ogre they had defeated earlier, and that they were all relatively weak individuals. Arnold praised Envy and Maribel for their efforts, and then asked about Lele's whereabouts. The two glanced toward her, and Envy remarked that it seemed she had drunk too much. Arnold then asked Shu, the man from earlier, if he could leave the rest to him. Shu agreed and proceeded to carry Celia, who loudly complained that she hated bright places. Shu responded that there were simply too many bodies around and asked for her help, reminding her that she was the expert in handling corpses. Celia protested, stating that she was a necromancer, not a corpse handler. As everyone murmured among themselves, Arnold laughed lightly, saying that he understood. Soon after, Lele called out to Arnold, announcing that lunch was ready. Watching the scene, the knight couldn't help but wonder how they could remain so carefree. He reflected on how this forest was filled with vicious monsters that his sword couldn't even scratch. And yet, this was the power of Lord Arnold, one of the 7 masters. Still, he realized it wasn't just Arnold's strength alone, it was the combined strength of every member of the squad. The knight stepped forward and apologized for interrupting. He explained that he had arrived as a messenger, carrying orders from someone who wished to see Sir Arnold. Arnold found this unusual. The knight then revealed that it was an urgent summons and requested that Arnold return to the castle immediately. As a token of gratitude, he offered his horse, explaining that if Arnold rode hard, he could reach the capital within a day. Envy asked about the urgency of the summons, and as Arnold read the letter, she encouraged him to accept their invitation. Arnold reassured her not to worry, stating that with the use of horses and enhancement magic, they could reach the royal castle of the Descent Kingdom before sunset. Soon after, Arnold arrived at the kingdom, where a man declared that Arnold was to be exiled from the realm. From that moment onward, his title as one of the 7 court mages was revoked, and his noble status annulled. No objections would be accepted. The one who delivered the sentence was Prince Gallerio. Arnold calmly asked if he might hear the reason for this decision. An elderly man standing beside the prince stepped forward, introducing himself as Middle. He explained that the primary reason was negligence of duty, stating that compared to the other court mages, Arnold had achieved no results. Arnold responded by questioning whether his achievements should truly be compared to those of the other 7, whose primary role was the invasion of foreign nations. His own duty had always been defense, and naturally, the results would appear different. Middle countered by stating that there were also reports claiming Arnold had been overly absorbed in crafting magic tools rather than subjugating enemies. Prince Gallerio dismissed such work entirely, calling it the task of a third-rate mage and declaring that someone who held the title of one of the 7 should not concern himself with such matters. To them, Arnold was nothing more than a shut-in who made magic tools. Yet Arnold had been appointed as one of the 7 masters by the king himself, recognized for his exceptional achievements in magic tool craftsmanship. Now he couldn't help but suspect that this exile was merely an excuse, orchestrated by the second prince. In this political struggle, remaining neutral had become a liability. His devotion to defending Varks, rather than choosing a faction, had ultimately backfired. Gallerio stated that he had heard rumors about weapons and magic tools made from rare materials being handed out to second-class soldiers. He claimed that such resources were being wasted, insisting that expendable soldiers should be treated as expendable. Hearing this, Arnold's anger rose. He responded that, with all due respect, his subordinates were not disposable tools. Though their ranks differed, they were trusted comrades who fought together on the battlefield. Prince Gallerio questioned whether Arnold intended to speak back. He declared that during His Majesty's absence, he himself was overseeing the kingdom, and therefore his words carried the authority of the King of Dissent. He warned that if Arnold continued to oppose him, it would be considered an act of rebellion. Gallerio then drew his sword, making it clear that such defiance would mean death on the spot. He added that he would not allow the matter to end there, stating that any battalion members who sided with Arnold were no better than traitors and would be executed alongside him. Arnold's anger deepened. In response, Gallerio coldly stated that he would show mercy for now and limit the punishment to banishment alone. Arnold replied that he had no objection to exile or to the revocation of his title. Upon hearing this, Gallerio laughed, saying that this was exactly what he wanted to hear. He added that Arnold's successor among the 7 masters was far more competent, and that the subordinates Arnold left behind would finally be put to proper use as tools, second-class citizens as they were meant to be. At that moment, Arnold's fury erupted. He unleashed his lightning magic, causing Gallerio and Nittle to recoil in fear. They demanded to know what he was doing. Arnold answered that if anyone insulted or belittled his comrades, he would show no mercy, no matter who they were. With that, he shattered Gallerio's sword. Terrified, Gallerio hastily declared that he would overlook Arnold's insolence this time. He ordered him to leave the country at once before he changed his mind, adding mockingly that Arnold could even take all the junk he had been hoarding in the barracks. As Arnold turned away, he realized that had he not restrained himself, Gallerio's head would have flown off. Judging by the situation, it seemed unlikely that the battalion members would be punished further. Still, the weight of exile pressed heavily on him. He had never imagined leaving behind comrades who believed in him. With their strength and the magic tools he had created, he believed he could survive whatever battles lay ahead. Yet this was the loneliest he had felt since his days at the orphanage. Later, standing alone in his room, Arnold felt an unexpected heaviness as he began clearing it out. He realized he had never truly cleaned the place even once. Deciding not to bother sorting anything, he stored everything into his magic storage pouch. Using spatial magic, weight reduction, and decay prevention enchantments, he packed away his belongings. This pouch, imbued with multiple enchantments, was one of his finest creations. With it, there was nothing he could not carry. As he exited the room, he overheard two knights speaking. One mentioned that a new member of the Seven Masters was about to take office. The other added that the appointment had been strongly backed by the Second Prince's faction. They went on to say that although the king was still active and healthy, he had grown old, and Prince Gallerio seemed eager for the throne. Rumors had spread that he was already gathering supporters from the other royal factions. Hearing this, Arnold wondered whether Princess Plula would be all right. She had always spoken to them kindly and without arrogance. He thought that he should at least say goodbye, but then realized it would be improper for someone who had lost his title to appear before her. Back at the battalion, anger spread rapidly upon hearing of Arnold's expulsion. Envy declared that Boggs had remained safe only because of him. Shu spoke up, stating that the captain's magic tools were creations no one else could replicate. Maribel added that they were all still alive because of him. When Shu mentioned that even Elroll had been trembling all afternoon, Envy suddenly declared that she was going after Arnold and would slam her resignation in the army's face. Maribel immediately stopped her, saying that while they all felt the same, they couldn't allow Envy to act on her own. Envy then suggested that everyone should simply follow Lord Arnold together. Shu objected, saying they couldn't abandon their posts so suddenly, as it would look like the captain was attempting to start a mutiny. He added that only a few of them should go for now. Lele agreed, saying it was that simple. She then pulled out a competition chart to decide who would go first, and warned everyone not to complain afterward. Envy told them not to blame her if they regretted it later. Lele suggested they settle things properly and decide who was strongest once and for all. Shu reminded them to keep the damage to a minimum. As the competition began, Envy wondered who would be the last one standing and asked whether Maribel was not participating. Maribel replied that there was no way she could defeat the squad leader. As the fight continued, Shu wondered what exactly he should report afterward. That night, Arnold slept beside his horse when an old man approached and addressed him respectfully, saying that dawn was near and everything was ready. Arnold woke and handed the man a bag of coins, apologizing for being a burden. He then reflected that in just one day he had lost everything. He wondered what he should live for now and whether gathering allies to fight back against the kingdom was the right path. At that moment, Envy and Maribel appeared from behind. They declared that it was a great idea, saying their blood was boiling and their bodies were burning with resolve. Arnold asked what they were doing in a place like this and told them not to say they had run all the way from Valks. He also asked why they looked so worn out. Envy told Maribel to keep the tournament a secret and then revealed that she had already submitted her resignation from the army. Maribel had done the same. Envy continued, stating that even if it meant becoming enemies of the Kingdom of Descent, she would follow him. She added that every member of the 35th Frontier Battalion shared that resolve. Arnold asked if the entire battalion truly planned to leave. He reminded them that he was no longer one of the Seven Masters nor a battalion commander, and that he could no longer protect anyone, even if they stayed by his side. Maribel responded that back in Valks, where they had fought hopeless battles day after day, it wasn't just weapons or magic tools that had been forged. Envy added that Arnold had given them something far more important, the strength to believe in someone again, and the will to keep fighting. He had given them a reason to live. She continued, saying that she had no home left to return to. Her homeland had been conquered, and she had become a second-class citizen. The place she belonged was wherever Lord Arnold stood. That was her home. Arnold admitted that he had once believed his hands were only meant to create magic tools, but if they truly had nowhere to go, then they would simply create a place of their own. He realized that it might be a little late to notice, but he had found his own purpose as well, to build a place where everyone could live. He declared that he would build their country with his own hands and asked if Maribel and Envy would believe in him. Both of them answered without hesitation. Envy then asked how he planned to found a country in the first place. Arnold told them to move out, saying that he already had a great idea. In the kingdom of Limbo, the northern neighbor of Descent, within the city of Gardner, an old man spoke in frustration. He reported that yet another caravan had been attacked by bandits and wondered how many times it had happened already. He explained that the bandits knew the royal family of Limbo lacked the power to mount a proper subjugation force, which was why they acted without fear. Even after raising the bounty, the damage continued to worsen. He added that if this continued, the guild's reputation would suffer, and if travel to and from Descent were cut off, relations between the two nations would inevitably deteriorate. At that moment, Arnold, Envy, and Maribel arrived in the kingdom. Before long, bandits appeared and launched an attack, only to be swiftly overwhelmed by the three of them. Soon after, a man rushed to the guild master and reported the commotion. The guild master asked what had happened, and the man replied that a group had arrived requesting work, and that they had already captured an entire band of wanted criminals. Shocked, the guild master asked whether it was truly every criminal on the list and what kind of group they were. Arnold stepped forward and introduced himself. He stated that they were an adventure clan known as Frontier Coral, and that he wished to have an audience with the guild master. At the kingdom of Descent, within the royal territory of Balks, at a rare logistics base, a battle was underway. Lele remarked that things were going wild again today. Shu responded that the monster extermination operation led by the direct unit of the Seven Sages, Vinland, who had arrived as Lord Arnold's successor, was already on its third day. Lele questioned why they were stuck guarding supplies in a place like this, saying it was incredibly boring. Shu replied that the unit likely wanted to keep all the credit for the operation within their own ranks. Elruv then wondered where Lord Arnold was at the moment. Shu explained that according to Envy's letter after meeting Lord Arnold, they had already crossed the northern border and should be arriving at the first town by now. Cilia arrived and asked if they were referring to the kingdom of Limbo, adding that it was a bit worrying. When Shu asked why, Cilia explained that the vast Teutoburg forest, which spread across Valks, also extended into Limbo. She added that Lord Arnold had only been dealing with the monsters overflowing from the forest for defensive purposes. Because of that, the balance among the monsters had remained barely stable. However, she feared that the massive sweep operation would throw everything into chaos, and even Limbo might be affected. Lele asked if Lord Arnold and the others were safe and hoped they had not let their guard down. Suddenly, they noticed a large number of injured soldiers from the Vinland squad, calling for the medical team. Lele jumped in surprise, saying that there had been an endless stream of wounded today. Shu admitted that he had a bad feeling about this. Meanwhile, in the city of Gardner within the kingdom of Limbo, the guild master stated that Beck's Red Cat bandits, who had played the trade caravan, as well as the extermination squad from Gilbert's Mountain Fortress, and even Connor's Crimson Squad, had all been taken down. He said he could hardly believe that the guild's most wanted band of thieves had been wiped out in a single strike. Arnold then asked whether they could receive job introductions through the Adventurers Guild. The guild master agreed and said the bounty for the bandit gang should be ready by the next day. Arnold replied that, as expected of the guild master, he always got straight to the point and made things easy. The guild master responded that if Arnold took on this job, it would be a great reassurance for the guild as well, and thanks to the non-aggression pact with Descent, there might even be no war in Limbo. He added that every royal family still wanted powerful individuals on their side, and depending on Arnold's results, he might even begin receiving direct commissions. Arnold stated that, in other words, this was a perfect chance to promote their work. The guild master agreed and said Arnold was free to choose any of the posted requests he liked, as there was a wide variety of ranks and job types available. Of course, the results would be his own responsibility. Envy and Maribel were delighted when they saw the requests, which mentioned a pair of salamanders and sightings of a greater demon. The guild master explained that both were around the mithril class. Arnold thought to himself that Envy and Maribel were both from warrior races after all. Envy then wondered what mithril meant. Arnold explained that it referred to the ranking system used to classify adventurers and the difficulty of requests. He added that in Limbo, the ranks went from iron, copper, silver, gold, mithril, and then orichalcum, while in Descent they were labeled E to S. Arnold then stated that choosing their first job was extremely important for their future. Since they did not have much manpower, he wanted to focus on requests that could be completed quickly and would lead to future opportunities. As an example, he pointed out a permanent request: ogre subjugation, ranked silver. Envy and Maribel became upset upon hearing this, and said they had already slain more ogres than they could count, and that it was not fun at all. Arnold responded that since they had fought them so many times, it had naturally become boring for them. However, for low-ranked adventurers and travelers, ogres were still extremely dangerous. Even though their intelligence was low, they moved in packs, and despite using crude weapons, their sheer strength could not be underestimated. He then stated that to take them down, they would need to be well stocked with healing potions and proper equipment. Because of that, ogres were troublesome monsters, and with such low rewards, very few adventurers accepted those quests. As a result, their numbers kept increasing, leaving many requests unresolved. Maribel then asked if that meant there was nothing in it for them. Arnold responded that this was exactly why taking on the ogre subjugation job made sense. The guild had long been troubled by ogre hunts being difficult yet unrewarding, but for battle-hardened warriors like them, the task would be easy. He added that even a single squad member could handle it. Arnold explained that their numbers recovered quickly, so there was no concern about the requests running out. In other words, it was one of those steady jobs they could continue even after the squad reunited. More importantly, it was work that benefited everyone. Endy responded that it was not just the guild suffering. Travelers, caravans, and even residents were being affected. Perhaps even the entire kingdom of Limbol was at risk. She believed this could lead to results that proved the worth of their clan's existence. Arnold replied that if that happened, it would surely become a foothold for creating their own nation. He said it was definitely worth taking on and asked them to at least learn enough for the day, as he also wanted the two of them to rest properly with a hot shower and a fluffy bed. Endy blushed and said that they had no choice but to go along with it. She then asked to join the first mission of the adventurers' clan, Frontier Coral. As they walked through the streets, Maribel asked Endy about Frontier Coral. Endy replied that of course she would not know, then said to Arnold that his naming sense alone might only be iron rank. Endy thought that for someone as perfect as Lord Arnold, having a few flaws like that made him feel just right. Otherwise, he would become someone she could never reach. Endy was from Provincia, a province of Desant. It was a land where the spirit of divine duels was deeply rooted. In that country, those born there, male or female, were treated equally, and every child was raised as a warrior. She remembered her home in the past, where her mother once became angry and threw utensils at her husband. Her mother demanded that he say that again, stating that just because he was her husband did not mean she would go easy on him. Her father responded that if she was frustrated, she should try cooking something better, and that a true warrior never took back their words. Her mother then told him to step outside, declaring it a duel. In the next moment, her father was lying in bed, covered in bandages. In a married couple's quarrel, serious injuries were nothing unusual. Even if people from Desant were called barbarians, Envy understood the meaning behind such customs. If one could not fight, they could not even use their life to protect what truly mattered. Envy remembered believing that dying in battle was an honor for a warrior. With that resolve, she threw herself into the Battle of Valks. That was when Arnold appeared as the battalion commander. He stated that her combat display had been impressive and asked for her name. Envy introduced herself and said there was no need for concern, as she might not look it, but she was a warrior. Arnold then said that he did not want to lose a single member of his team, and that he would prefer she did not fight so recklessly. Envy responded that she had heard he was one of the 7 masters, but that he spoke rather gently. She added that one could not fight in Valks without being ready to die, because on that battlefield, warriors offered their pride and their lives to carve a path for their comrades, and she was one of them. Arnold then said that he understood. He declared that the warrior Envy ended here and now. Envy was left in shock as Arnold activated his magic. He then stated that if even one of his precious subordinates were to die, it would deeply sadden him, but if they lived, they could still find happiness. He asked her from that moment on to fight as part of the 35th Frontier Battalion, to fight together, to live together, alongside everyone else. When Envy responded that it was impossible for her, saying she had lived her life believing the battlefield would be the place where she died, an ogre suddenly stood up behind her. Without realizing it, Envy muttered that pretty words like that would not protect anything. Arnold replied that she was right, and that perhaps it did sound like empty idealism. Then, with a single strike of his hand, he struck down the monster, declaring that as long as his hands could reach, he would protect them with everything he had. The people he had chosen were his precious friends. Arnold then collapsed. Endi shouted his name, and Arnold responded that getting hurt really was not a good thing. He added that he looked forward to working with her. At that moment, as they all returned to the task at hand, Endi thought that from now on, she wanted to protect everyone, and Lord Arnold as well. She used her dragon-flying absolute blade to slash the ogre behind him. Arnold remarked that it was just as expected of Endi and said that he could handle something like that on his own. Endi replied that she wanted to be useful to him too, and that no matter what battles lay ahead, she would prove that she could earn his trust and protect him. Arnold then looked at the compass, and Maribel warned them to stay sharp, sensing something approaching. Suddenly, several knights rushed toward them, asking for help. Arnold asked what was happening. One of the knights explained that there was no doubt about it. This job was bad news. The number of monsters was overwhelming, and some were far beyond silver rank. Suddenly, an explosion echoed behind them, and Arnold noticed a red ogre. He stated that it was a higher species of ogre that sometimes appeared in barks, and questioned why it had come all the way to Limble. As Arnold thought about preventing Gardner from being caught in the destruction, Endi declared that she would take on the red ogre, while Maribel should handle the others. Maribel protested, saying it was unfair and wishing she were stronger. Endi responded that it was first come, first served, and the two of them charged into battle. As Endi and Maribel fought, a knight asked Arnold if he was the clan leader and whether he had lost his mind for leaving something like that to just women. Another injured knight urged everyone to run while they still could. Endi thought that maybe not now, but someday she would fight shoulder to shoulder with Arnold. She realized she felt something for him, because she loved him. Suddenly, an axe came flying from behind. Arnold shouted her name, rushed forward, grabbed her, and pulled her out of the way. He said that neither of them would get hurt today, and Endi blushed. Maribel then said she was finished on her end and asked what was going on between the two of them. The moment turned awkward. Endi muttered that it was nothing and that she still had a long way to go. Maribel asked what she meant and told her to explain. Endi replied that it was a secret. Arnold, meanwhile, thought that a higher species appearing in one of Limble's calmer forests was strange. He wondered if it was merely a coincidence or if it was connected to the Great Teutoburg Forest and the Volks region. He feared that things might already be turning troublesome. At the royal castle of the Kingdom of Dazant, inside the chamber of the second Prince Gallerio, he was calmly enjoying his tea. He stated that in the heavenly territory of Valks, things should now be progressing well for Dazant. He added that eliminating the second princess's faction had been worth the trouble, and now all that remained was to wait for the results of Vinland's battle, whom he had personally recommended. Once those results were reported to their father, the throne would be his. Suddenly, Middle rushed in, announcing that a messenger had arrived. The prince replied that he had been waiting and asked whether the monsters of Valks had been wiped out. Middle responded that Sir Vinland had been severely injured and had withdrawn from the front lines. The prince immediately asked what had happened to the direct unit. When Middle replied that it had been completely wiped out, and that reports were coming in of monster activity rapidly increasing in neighboring countries, the prince was left in shock. At the Dazant Kingdom's royal castle, a knight rushed in to report to King Farid Ie. He informed him that the mop-up operation in Barks had failed due to an assault by a monster army. The 7th Division, led by Vinland, had been taken out of action after suffering severe injuries. The remaining direct subordinates were still resisting, but they were on the verge of being completely wiped out. Reinforcements were being requested immediately. Hearing this, the king's expression turned grim. He remarked to the prince that a grave mistake had been made in his absence, and that he was deeply disappointed in Gallerio. Gallerio responded that if a replacement for the 7 masters was needed, he could think of many suitable candidates. However, the king cut him off and stated that the report made it clear that Arnold had managed to hold back such a dangerous force with only a single battalion. If anything, he was a hero. The king continued by questioning whether Gallerio truly understood how disastrous it would be if such power were to fall into the hands of another nation, and what a threat it would pose to Dazant's future. The king then declared that a foolish son like Gallerio had no right to take part in his rule, and ordered him to leave the royal castle immediately. Shocked, Prince Gallerio stood frozen. The king returned to his throne and began considering their next move. He wondered how they should respond, as sending reinforcements would take time, and questioned whether they should deploy the royal capital guard. At that moment, first Prince Baldo stepped forward and stated that the royal capital guard was the kingdom's trump card. He suggested that they should first dispatch the soldiers currently stationed in the surrounding provinces. The king agreed and said that if there were imbalances in military strength across their territories, it could provoke rebellion. Baldo replied that in that case, they should conscript soldiers even from the second-class citizens of the provinces, leaving them with no power to rebel. The king warned that such actions would surely spark resistance, but Baldo insisted it was still better than allowing the entire country to be ravaged by monsters. Taking a deep breath, the king ordered the immediate gathering of troops. He commanded them to hold back the monster army and buy time while reinforcements were organized, and instructed them to begin planning the reconstruction of the defensive line at Valks. At the Adventurers Guild in Gardner City, within the Kingdom of Limble, Arnold was focused on adjusting his compass. Maribel asked what he was doing. He explained that he was maintaining his magic tools, since the past few days had been unusually eventful. He mentioned dealing with bandits, encountering a red ogre, and various other incidents, and said he wanted to be prepared no matter what happened. He then added that he was also trying to create a prototype for a new magic tool, a bracelet, and asked Maribel if she would be willing to try wearing it for a while. She asked what kind of effects it had. Arnold responded by saying that they should both put on the same one first. At that moment, Envy arrived and remarked that it was a magic tool she had never seen before. Maribel then asked if Envy was interested as well. Envy responded that Lord Arnold's magic tools had saved her life many times. Maribel agreed and added that Arnold's magic tools were something they could no longer live without. When Envy asked whether Maribel had not once said that she hated magic tools, Maribel admitted that she had, but said that things were different now. Maribel then recalled her past. She remembered how her people, the horse-riding warriors of the Halkik tribe, had lived in their homeland of Yoshida. They were warriors who could freely command both their horses and their spirits, and on the plains of battle, they had once been truly invincible. Her father had once told her that their spirit-infused arrows could pierce even the armor of Dizant soldiers, tearing through enemy ranks as they charged forward. He had told her to take aim and release her arrow. But in that moment, she had been shocked when her spirit arrow was completely nullified. The enemy knights had then unleashed magical great cannons, destroying her entire tribe. Even after enduring harsh training and mastering her life force, she still could not lay a hand on the Dizant soldiers who relied on magic tools. She could not accept it. To her, magic tools were vile creations that depended on false power. After Yoshida fell and became a province, she was reduced to a second-class conscript. Seeking true strength, she requested assignment to the most dangerous battlefield in the Dizant kingdom, Balks. Maribel then remembered how she first met Arnold. She had been walking when she saw him surrounded by magic items. Arnold had said that with those, they would be fine for a while. She asked what he was doing, and he replied that he was making healing potions for the battalion members and told her to feel free to use them anytime. That was when she became angry. She said she hated him, and that anyone who relied on magic tools was weak and lacked conviction. She declared that she would never rely on such things. Arnold calmly took a potion and said that he poured everything he had into creating them. Maribel responded that with powerful magic tools, even a rookie could defeat a strong enemy, and depending on how they were used, such tools could turn people into cowardly and despicable beings. Arnold then explained that magic tools were not created solely for killing or winning battles. He said that when facing dangerous monsters, magic tools could be used for protection or to avoid danger altogether. He added that if he could create tools that guided and supported his battalion members, and if they could all live together because of that, then it would be his true victory. He then said that he would continue making magic tools for that reason, and that even if she hated him, as long as he could help her someday, that alone would make him happy. Suddenly, someone rushed in and said that something terrible had happened. Envy had protected a comrade who was attacked by a monster, but the wound was too deep, and healing magic would not be enough in time. Arnold immediately used his magic, Phoenix Tailfeather. Maribel watched in shock as the fatal wound began healing at an incredible speed. She wondered what it was, and Arnold explained that it was a magic tool made from the feather of an immortal bird that governed eternity, capable of instantly healing even fatal wounds, but only once. Maribel asked if he was truly sure, since it was such a precious item. Arnold affirmed it and said that magic tools exist to help others. Envy stood back up, and Layla rushed over, overjoyed, and hugged her tightly. Maribel then asked Arnold if it was all right for her to hold onto the potion. As she did, she thought to herself that Lord Arnold, who guided his companions with pride, conviction, strength, and countless magic tools, was truly precious. Maribel had become someone she deeply respected, and because of that, Lord Arnold's magic tools had also become precious to her. Just then, the guild master arrived and apologized for making them wait. He said that the reward for the bandit hunt from the other day was ready and asked them to come over. Arnold told Envy and Maribel to wait for him, and the guild master added that he had heard Arnold had taken down a red ogre the day before. He remarked that it was quite an achievement for their very first job. With that, the two of them walked away. Suddenly, several adventurers approached Envy and Maribel. They asked if it was true that the monster had been a red ogre. One of them scoffed and said there was no way a pretty boy and two girls could have pulled that off. When Envy asked what he meant, the adventurer kicked the compass, saying that Arnold must have used some cheap magic tool or some sneaky trick to win. Maribel immediately picked up the compass and demanded that they apologize, saying she would not forgive anyone who insulted Lord Arnold's magic tools. The adventurer mocked her and asked if she was just a child. Envy grew angry and said that this bastard had dared to insult her comrade. Maribel stopped her and said that they did not even understand the true value of that magic tool. She then asked whether they planned to remain low-rank adventurers forever. The adventurers grew furious and told them to step outside, saying they would make them regret it. Once outside, Envy angrily asked what Maribel meant by telling her not to get involved. Maribel replied that if Envy fought while her blood was boiling, she would kill them, and since there were only 3 of them, Envy could easily hold back. The adventurers sneered and said they would make her regret underestimating them, adding that even if she cried and begged, they would not forgive her. Maribel responded that the one who should apologize was the knight. She then took out a potion. One of the adventurers noticed it and said he knew it. The red ogre must have used the same thing. Maribel tossed the potion into the air and said she did not even need to use it against people like them, and that before it even returned to her hand, it would already be over. The adventurers rushed in to attack, but Maribel dodged effortlessly and countered, taking one of them down. The second rushed forward, but she struck him down as well, even breaking through his armor. The third tried to curse her, but she slammed him away with her elbow and calmly caught the healing potion as it fell. Envy smiled and said that leaving it to Maribel had been the right choice. Meanwhile, Arnold received the payment for the bandit hunt and noted that the reward was higher than he had expected. He said that with this amount they would be fine for lodging for a while and would have enough to search for a base. When he returned to Envy and Maribel, he noticed a crowd gathered around them. He saw Maribel demanding that an adventurer apologize for insulting her comrades and for insulting Lord Arnold's magic tools. Just as one of the adventurers was about to draw his sword, Envy called out to Maribel, warning her to look behind. A blade was coming from her 7 o'clock position. Maribel dodged the attack and slammed the attacker to the ground. Envy rushed over and asked if she was all right. Maribel replied that the voice she had just heard was definitely coming from the magic bracelet. Arnold arrived at the scene and said that he was relieved. He explained that everything was working properly, even though it was still only a prototype. He then explained that the device allowed voices to be transmitted over long distances through paired magic tools. He added that it was one of the tools he was currently researching and that its name was Here to Talk, number 1. Maribel laughed and said that Lord Arnold truly was amazing. One of the adventurers struggled to his feet and asked whether they really thought they could get away with this. Arnold replied that he wanted to repay them for helping his comrades and asked if they had any requests. The adventurer smiled and said that Arnold seemed far more obedient than expected. He then demanded that Arnold hand over his strongest healing potion. Arnold agreed without hesitation. He took out a potion and explained that it was a special one brewed from hydra bile and a ghoul's heart. He said that if someone drank it down, even a serious wound would heal completely within 3 days. The adventurer smiled in satisfaction, but Arnold calmly added that the stench was so terrible that whoever drank it would remain unconscious for all 3 days. Envy turned to Maribel and commented that she had changed too, since she had kept that potion with her. Maribel blushed and told her to be quiet. She explained that the magic tools Lord Arnold made were different from others, and while she could not quite put it into words, she felt they were special. Envy teased her, saying she should just admit that she liked him, but Maribel replied that she did not really understand what she meant. Just then, knights arrived and demanded to know what all the commotion was about. The adventurers muttered that the Limble Knights had arrived, and one of them remarked that it was time to run. A knight responded that it was a fitting reaction for small-time crooks and effortlessly knocked him away. The crowd murmured, wondering if those were the Holy Knights. The knights then asked whether the 2 of them were the ones responsible for the disturbance and warned them not to think they could escape in the chaos using such cowardly tricks. A female knight stepped forward and declared that those who disturbed the order of the Kingdom of Limble would not escape her sight, announcing her name as Sakura von Ars Nova Signary. Sakura declared that she would not overlook anyone who disturbed the order of the Limble Kingdom, and that if they resisted, they would be judged by her sword on the spot. Arnold realized that this was an emergency and that he could not afford to be delayed here. 3 days earlier, at Gardner Street Stall Square, a girl had asked Sakura to look at a ribbon, saying it was cute. Sakura replied that it would suit Oka well and asked whether she should give it to her as a present. The girl asked if that was really okay, and Sakura responded by asking if she was not even allowed to shop freely in her position. She then said she would be right back and asked the girl to wait. However, when Sakura returned, she apologized for keeping Oka waiting but found that she was gone. Since then, she had been searching for Oka, who had disappeared without a trace, yet not a single clue had been found. At that moment, the guild master came outside and noticed Lady Sakura. He remarked that it had been a while and mentioned that he had heard about her exploits during the night. He then asked what had brought her here today. Sakura replied that she had simply been apprehending someone who was causing a disturbance in the city and that she would soon catch the remaining 3. The guild master laughed, and when Sakura asked what was so amusing, he explained that those men were not ordinary ruffian adventurers. He then asked whether she was aware that the bandit group nesting along the border road had been completely wiped out. Sakura responded that it must have been the achievement described in the new adventure report they had received. The guild master confirmed that it was indeed the very adventure party mentioned in the report, the Frontier Choral of the Adventurers Guild, and Sakura was visibly shocked. The guild master went on to explain that they had just certified the subjugation of a dangerous red ogre at the guild. Because of that, it was likely that there were people who resented the success of the newcomers. He added that he would gladly cooperate to clear their names. Understanding the situation, Sakura knelt down and apologized for having suspected them unfairly. Arnold denied the need for an apology and said that they themselves had gone a little too far. Sakura responded that regardless of the reason, fighting was never good, and from now on, she wanted them to be more mindful of their surroundings when they acted. Envy and Maribel also apologized, and then Arnold said that he had one question. When Sakura asked what it was, Arnold asked why a holy knight was leading the Limble Knights in Gardner when she should have been in the capital. He wondered whether something serious had happened, something that would make a person like Sakura, whose calm demeanor and composed words were always impressive, feel uneasy. He added that the disturbance in the magical energy she was emitting alone revealed how grave the situation was. Sakura admitted that she had been seen through so easily. Arnold apologized for overstepping and said that perhaps there was something they could do to help. Sakura thought that they had already exhausted every possible lead in their search for Oka, and if that was the case, then the only remaining option was to accept their help. She then said that there was just one thing she wanted to ask. Even if it had all been a misunderstanding, she had still suspected them, and she wanted to know what they thought about helping. Arnold replied that there was no need for an explanation, because they could not simply leave things as they were. He said that he felt the same way himself. Sakura responded that she understood, and that this matter was no longer hers alone. In the worst case, it could endanger their positions and even their lives, and she asked whether they were prepared for that. Maribel replied that this was exactly what she wanted. Envy added that the battlefield was no different, especially when failure was not an option. Arnold stated that he would give everything he had, as long as his hands could still reach. Sakura replied that those words meant more to her than anything right now. She then asked them to call her Sakura, and requested to hear everyone's names as well. Each of them introduced themselves. After that, Sakura explained that the one who had disappeared was her half-sister. Her name was Marquis Ars Nova, the heir to one of the most distinguished families in the kingdom of Limble. She added that Oka should have been right by her side, yet she had vanished without a trace. The knights had organized a search party and scoured the city, but they had not even been able to grasp her whereabouts, let alone find a trail. Arnold understood that this was a missing person case and stated that, given the situation, they could assume someone had taken her. However, even if the Holy Knights had failed to notice the crime, it was still unlikely to be a simple incident. Indy added that it could not have been the work of ordinary bandits. Maribel followed by stating that leaving no trace meant it had been carefully planned, and that it was certain a professional of some kind had been targeting Lady Oka. Sakura was shocked to hear this, and as she wondered about it, Arnold stated that he was certain they were still alive. He explained that although the motive was unclear, no one would abduct someone without a reason. Sakura responded that if that were the case, then Gardner had already searched every corner of the city, which meant that if they continued searching, it would have to be outside. She then asked how many days it would take with just the search team. Arnold suggested that instead of searching blindly, they should try pursuing them. He then asked Sakura whether she had any belongings that belonged to Lady Oka. Sakura confirmed that she did, though she hesitated to call it a belonging. explaining that it was a ribbon Uka had touched before she disappeared. Arnold responded that there was a trace of magic left on it and said he wanted to try something. When Sakura asked what he intended to do with the ribbon, Arnold took out a puppy-like magical tool, a tracking-type device called Sniffer-kun. Sakura was surprised to see it, and Envy asked when they had obtained such a magic tool. Arnold explained that Errol had once asked him to make a tool to catch squad members who skipped mealtime, but things had become too hectic for meals, so the idea had been shelved. Sakura responded that she had seen many rare magic tools before, but never anything like this, and asked whether Arnold was skilled not only in combat, but also in crafting magic tools. Arnold replied that he was not particularly good at either magic or swordsmanship. Envy commented that this difference in perception was impressive, and Maribel added that it was precisely what made him so strong. Arnold then brought the ribbon close to Sniffer-kun and stated that it had been a while since their last mission, and that it was time to register the owner of this magical power. Sniffer-kun sniffed the ribbon and began searching. Arnold instructed it to track down the owner of the magic power. Sniffer-kun suddenly went towards Sakura, causing her to ask what was wrong with the child. Arnold explained that the ribbon was also imbued with Lady Sakura's magic, and that Lady Uka might not be detectable there. He added that they would have to trace the point where her remaining presence still lingered and asked where Lady Uka had disappeared. Sakura replied that it was at the square just over there and said she would take them. When they reached the square, Sakura asked whether they could really pinpoint Uka's magic with so many people around. Arnold replied that magic was like fingerprints, different for each person, and that as long as the residue had not vanished, they should be able to track it. For now, they simply had to trust the magic device. Sniffer-kun suddenly reacted and began running in a certain direction. Sakura asked if it had found a trace, and Arnold started running as well, saying that it looked like the pursuit had begun. He added that it did not seem like they had time to prepare a carriage, and that they would have to follow on foot. Near the forest at the border of the Kingdom of Limbo, Arnold asked whether Sakura was all right. She affirmed that she was, though she thought to herself that she could barely keep up even with body enhancement. She realized that it had already been about 3 hours since they started running from Gardner, yet none of the three showed even the slightest sign of fatigue. She understood why the guildmaster trusted them so much and wondered where they had developed such abilities. Suddenly, Arnold stopped and said that he had found it. He pointed out a cave within the rocky cliffs, stating that it appeared to be the kidnappers' hideout. Sakura responded that it looked blurry from that distance and that the entrance was concealed with illusion and barrier magic. She added that to an ordinary night, it would appear to be nothing more than a rock wall, and that the 2 lookouts were fully equipped. This, she said, was nothing like a mere bandit gang. Sakura then stated that they did not know who the enemies were or how many there were, and that it was far too dangerous for just the 3 of them. She admitted that it was frustrating, but said they should withdraw for now because she wanted to confirm Oka's safety as soon as possible. If they were defeated here, everything would be over. She suggested returning to call for reinforcements and preparing to break the barrier, since dawn would arrive soon at this rate. Arnold then stated that he would take care of this quickly, and that Envy and Maribel would guard Lady Sakura. Sakura was shocked and exclaimed that it was reckless, even for Lord Arnold. Envy, however, told her to stay quiet and said that she should just watch. Sniffer-kun moved toward the guards, and one of them scoffed, saying it was just a mutt and that it had scared him for nothing. Another guard suddenly panicked and asked how it had managed to get past the disguise and the barrier. Before either of them could react, both guards were instantly knocked out by Arnold. More guards rushed over, saying that they thought there had only been a hole in the barrier, but now it had disappeared. They called out to their boss, reporting that an intruder had been detected. The boss arrived and declared that he did not know how they had managed to sniff out the guards, but they would not be leaving alive. However, Arnold swiftly took down each of them without hesitation. Sakura watched in shock as Arnold effortlessly took them out. In an instant he had broken through the barrier and eliminated the threat. There was no one among the knights who could move like that. Overwhelmed, Sakura shouted that she wanted to know who these people truly were and who Arnold really was. Endy responded that he was the one they trusted the most. She then revealed that he was the former commander of the 35th Frontier Battalion of the Dizant Kingdom, and also the court magus known as one of the 7 sages, whose name was known to all, Arnold of Sloth. Sakura was left in shock. She realized that one of the 7 sages of the Dizant Kingdom, each capable of single-handedly destroying an entire nation, was standing right before her. Until that moment, she had never imagined that the person she had been traveling with was such an overwhelming existence. Sakura, a holy knight of the Limbo Knights, was searching for her stepsister, Oka, who had gone missing in the city of Gardner. However, the search proved difficult. In the midst of this, the Adventurer Guild Frontier Coral offered their assistance. With the help of Sir Arnold's magic tools, Sakura finally managed to track down the kidnapper's hideout and infiltrate it. However, she was shocked when she realized that Arnold was none other than the former court mage of the Desant Kingdom, the renowned Arnold, the Sloth of the Seven Masters himself. At that moment, after Arnold defeated the boss guard, the man stood up in anger, claiming that things had gone terribly wrong. Arnold questioned whether he was a mercenary, stating that this level of organization was far too advanced for a simple kidnapping. He demanded to know who had ordered the abduction of the young lady. The guard replied that Arnold should not think he had already won just because of this, and activated his enhancement magic: physical boost, body enhancement, defensive enhancement, and speed enhancement. Arnold was surprised that the guard could stack enhancement magic. The guard then declared that with triple enhancement, even a holy knight was nothing to fear, and that he would tear them apart. Arnold admitted that he had not expected the guard to be so skilled. In response, the guard claimed that even if Arnold begged for his life, it was already too late. When Arnold activated his own physical boost enhancement, the guard mocked him, saying that such a level of enhancement was meaningless. However, Arnold then activated additional enhancements: spirit enhancement, physical boost, and body enhancement, causing the guard to freeze in shock. When Arnold activated overdrive, the guard found it impossible to believe that magic and spirit could be enhanced simultaneously. He demanded to know how Arnold could combine opposing forces. Arnold calmly explained that it was simple, stating that all one had to do was maintain the optimal balance between magic and spirit, like aligning the tips of two needles without even the slightest margin of error. He added that for some reason he had never seen anyone else capable of doing it. The guard, now terrified, called him a monster and launched an attack. Elsewhere, Sakura and the others wondered what that loud disturbance was. Maribel replied that it had come from deeper inside. Sakura realized that Lord Arnold was drawing the enemy's attention and said they should find Oko while they still had the chance. Suddenly, Sakura noticed that the tracking magic tool, Snifferkun, was reacting to a wall. Andy pointed this out, and Sakura wondered if it was a secret door. When she pushed it, the wall opened, and she called out to ask if Oka was there. Suddenly, Oka's voice came from behind the bars, telling Sakura not to come closer. At that moment, another guard attempted to attack Sakura from behind, but she countered the strike. Envy and Maribel quickly dealt with the remaining enemies and obtained the key. Sakura unlocked the cell and asked Oka if she was hurt. Oka replied that it was only a scratch and apologized, saying her carelessness had caused everyone trouble. She added that she knew her sister Sakura would definitely come for her, and that was why she was fine. Sakura then told the others that they should head outside first to ensure Oka's safety before meeting up with Lord Arnold. Oka wondered about him as they moved outside. When they emerged, Arnold appeared and stated that it seemed they had successfully rescued Lady Oka and that their work there was done. He added that the remaining bandits had been restrained and put to sleep with magic, and that backup would be called to handle the rest. Sakura addressed Lord Arnold and hesitated, asking whether she should call him Sir Arnold. She apologized for her lack of manners and said that she never imagined he was the renowned Seven Sages member, Arnold von Eckenstein. She added that it was thanks to him that they were able to rescue Oka. Both Sakura and Oka thanked him from the bottom of their hearts. Arnold, however, wondered if he was really that famous. Oka then explained that he was the mysterious mage who had single-handedly defended the Desant Kingdom from monster attacks and, unlike the other seven masters, never appeared in public. That was Arnold, the Sloth of the Seven Masters. Arnold responded that it was something he could do because he had many squad members, not just one. Sakura replied that even so, her swordsmanship was still far inferior to his. Oka then added that just by looking at his magic tool, she could tell that Arnold was among the very best. Arnold responded that things were different now. When they wondered what he meant, he explained that he had been banished from the Desant Kingdom and was now simply Arnold, an adventurer of the Frontier Coral Guild. Arnold then used his magic on Oka and stated that it was advanced healing and purification magic. Sakura was shocked and said that he had cast it almost instantly without an incantation, something that would be difficult even for a top-tier mage. Oka was also surprised, noticing that her clothes looked as good as new and her hair was even more lustrous than when freshly washed. She said she had never seen such advanced purification magic before. Swordsmanship, magic tools, and magic itself. There was no one in all of Limbo with such skill, and yet the Desant Kingdom had banished Sir Arnold. Sakura then recalled a moment from the past, when her father had been right. She remembered him calling her and saying that there was something he needed to ask of her, explaining that he wanted her to guard Oka for a while. That man was Marquis Ars Nova. Sakura wondered about it and asked if it had something to do with Uka. The Marquis denied it, saying it was not a problem with her. He explained that over the past few days there had been reports of unrest among regional factions, old powerful families dissatisfied with the current monarchy of Limbo. He added that they were likely trying to undermine the royalist faction led by the first prince by colluding with the first princess, who had apparently ingratiated herself with that faction ahead of the succession struggle. Sakura understood and stated that the Ars Nova family was also within their reach. The Marquis affirmed this and added that there were also rumors of suspicious armed groups operating in Limbo. He explained that they were likely waiting for an opportunity to strike, and even more troubling was that Dizant's interference had become increasingly blatant. He had heard that they were bringing local factions to their side one after another, with promises of rewards and vast sums of money. Sakura then asked about the non-aggression pact with Dizant. The Marquis grew angry and declared that it was nothing more than a thin piece of paper, something that would turn to trash the moment they crushed it. Sakura grew uneasy, and the Marquis continued, stating that a major change might soon occur in Dizant, and that its influence would likely spread to Limbo as well. He admitted that he did not know what the outcome would be, but at that time he was counting on Sakura. She understood his meaning. Back in the present, Arnold took out a multi-purpose board-type magic tool, the floating board. Uka asked if it was a vehicle, saying that it looked like a bed floating in the air and felt strange to ride. Arnold replied that he was using magic to make it float and that he would tell them, asking them to bear with him for a moment. Sakura told Arnold not to worry about them and said that he could call her by her first name. Uka then told Sakura that they must formally entertain everyone as benefactors of the Ars Nova family. Sakura turned to Arnold and asked if he would mind coming to the capital, Glotzenburg. Arnold was surprised when Sakura added that she wanted to formally introduce him to her father, Marquis Ars Nova. Sakura then wondered if something was wrong, and Uka responded that Sakura's choice of words had been quite bold. At the Ars Nova Marquisate, within the Ars Nova mansion located east of the capital, the Marquis welcomed Arnold into his territory. He stated that he had already heard the full details from Sakura and expressed that words alone could not convey his gratitude for saving Uka from such a dire predicament. Arnold responded that those were far too kind words for him. The Marquis replied that there was no need for humility, as there was no one in Limbo who did not know Arnold's name. Hearing that, Arnold felt confused, as he believed he had only been hunting monsters along the Dizant frontier. The Marquis then asked if Arnold truly doubted it. He went on to explain that the Teutoburg Great Forest stretched from the Dizant frontier all the way to the eastern region of Limbo, and defending the nation from monsters emerging from that forest was a crucial responsibility. He added that the Ars Nova territory served as a strategic point, the eastern shield against those monsters. However, it could no longer keep up with the increasingly vicious threats appearing year after year. Even the knights and the royal army had been unable to completely prevent the invasions. The Marquis then stated that there was a mage who, with only a single battalion, had continuously repelled those monsters. That mage was Arnold, known as the Sloth of the Seven Mages. He asked who would not be astonished by such an achievement. Arnold responded that he had recently encountered a red ogre, and that it seemed the monster threat was indeed growing worse. At that moment, Sakura called out to her father, apologizing for letting the conversation drift, and suggested they move on to discussing Arnold's reward. She told him to name anything he wished for, and the Marquis would do his utmost to grant it. Arnold reflected on the fact that Marquis Ars Nova was one of the most powerful figures in Eastern Limbo, and that this reward would be an important decision. He realized that what he needed was not immediate profit, but something that would benefit the future. More than anything, the unity of the battalion he had left behind mattered most to him. He then stated that if Limbo was facing difficulties with monsters in the east, then this would be the reward he desired. When the Marquis asked what he meant, Arnold explained that he wanted three things. First, he wanted the adventurer rank of Frontier Coral to be raised to gold, as it was necessary to deal with dangerous monsters. Second, he wanted members of the clan to be guaranteed the same rights as commoners, so that his comrades would not be treated unfairly. Third, he wanted permission to operate freely throughout the entire eastern region of Limbo. The Marquis asked if that was truly his reward and remarked that Arnold was indeed an impressive man. He added that he had no reason to refuse. However, Sakura sensed something was wrong and asked about it. The Marquis explained that the issue lay with the third request. His territory covered only a portion of the east, and granting access to the entire region would require approval from the royal family and the various factions. He further explained that due to the ongoing monster invasions, the situation in the east was extremely unstable, and the major political figures were hesitant to make decisions out of fear of worsening the situation. Sakura insisted that there should be no doubt about Lord Arnold's abilities, but the Marquis replied that there were still stubborn individuals among them, and persuading them would take time. Arnold then stated that he needed a way to convince them all at once, and that if only he had an overwhelming persuasive argument. When the Marquis asked how he planned to do that, Arnold replied that if he could reunite with the rest of his battalion. Before he could finish, Sakura stepped forward and asked the Marquis if she could accompany him. She explained that as a holy knight belonging to the kingdom, she should have some degree of authority even outside the Ars Nova territory, and that this would help avoid trouble with other factions as well. The Marquis then asked what Arnold thought of this idea. Arnold replied that it was a reasonable proposal, and added that he also wished to avoid doing anything that might jeopardize the position of the Ars Nova family. More than anything, he said that her honest words were refreshing. Hearing this, Sakura blushed slightly. The Marquis then stated that he would entrust the border quarrel to Sakura. After that, Arnold and Sakura stepped outside. Arnold remarked that it was a relief, and thanks to her, they would be able to begin operations in the eastern region starting the next day. Sakura responded that she did not have much authority herself, and that in the end, it would all depend on Lord Arnold. He then replied that they would prove, through their actions, that they could be of true help to Limble. There, the Marquis thought to himself that the innocent girl had truly grown up. He never imagined that she would bring back a former member of the Seven Sages, Arnold the Sloth, and he could not even begin to imagine what kind of persuasion she would use to move someone like him. Overwhelmed with emotion, the Marquis shed tears of joy and thought that he would never allow her to marry such a man. That night, Envy and Maribel changed into different outfits. Envy asked whether the clothes suited her, and Maribel replied that she was not used to wearing something like this. When Arnold saw them, he was visibly surprised and asked what was going on with their outfits. Oka responded that she had lent them her own clothes along with Sakura's, and just as she had expected, they both fit perfectly. Envy then remarked to Maribel that they had lived their lives on the battlefield until now, and if they ever built their own country, perhaps this was how their daily life would look. At dinner, the maid explained that although the meal was simple, she had prepared it carefully and asked them to enjoy it without worrying about etiquette. Envy and Maribel's eyes lit up, and Envy exclaimed that the meat was incredibly delicious and that she could eat all of it. Arnold told them to show some restraint and then asked the maid about Marquis Ars Nova. The maid replied that it would be rude to disturb him, so he had declined to join them. She then asked them to take their seats, saying she would return shortly. After the meal, Arnold stood on the balcony, thinking that he should call the rest of the battalion soon. Nearby, Envy and Maribel were lying on the couch, relaxing. Suddenly, a man approached and called out to Arnold, saying he had been searching for him. Arnold went to meet him, and the man said it was an honor to finally meet him. Arnold felt that he did not recognize the man and wondered why a descent noble would address him so familiarly. He apologized and asked who the man was. The man replied that he was not important enough to introduce himself properly, as he was merely a messenger. He explained that he had been sent directly by His Majesty, King Farid III of the Descent Kingdom. He continued, saying that His Majesty was deeply saddened by Arnold's banishment, and that the second prince, who had caused the incident, had already been expelled from the castle. The king now wished to welcome Arnold back as one of the seven masters, offering him special treatment. The messenger added that Arnold would receive an increased reward, the highest honor to recognize his achievements, and command over a newly formed direct unit of Descent soldiers, not provincial troops. Arnold then asked what had happened to the 35th Border Battalion. The man replied that they had abandoned their posts and disappeared, leaving behind a mountain of resignation letters, but assured him that the defenses he had built would still be maintained. Arnold refused the offer. He stated that it was fortunate that Descent could prevent monster invasions, unlike Limble, and that they likely did not lack capable individuals. He added that he would do what he wanted in his own way and believed that he could find that purpose here. As Arnold turned away, the man warned that he would regret this decision someday. Arnold denied it, thinking instead that they had chosen to build their own country with their own hands. In the next moment, a knight asked the man whether he intended to bring Arnold back by force. The man replied that since it was only him, it would be fine to be a little rough. Near the border of the Tudoberg forest, Arnold, Sakura, and the others were walking when Envy suddenly asked them to wait for a moment. Arnold replied that if they did not hurry, the sun would soon set. Envy then asked why he was taking on so many guild requests. Arnold explained that someone had kindly delivered some important news to him. Apparently, the remaining members of the 35th Frontier Battalion had all disappeared from Descent. Envy realized that this meant everyone was likely heading toward Limbo. Sakura added that the largest city nearby was Gardner, yet there had been no reports of such a unit appearing there. Arnold replied that if soldiers from a neighboring country marched openly along the road, it would immediately cause trouble. Envy then wondered whether there were any hidden routes. Arnold answered that the Great Forest itself was their path. He explained that traveling through it would allow them to move without drawing attention, and that this was a strategy only possible for those accustomed to forest combat. Arnold then added that, in preparation for their reunion, he was taking on monster subjugation requests to earn money. It was also an important task to secure the safety of the battalion's advance route, so he was approaching it with full determination. Maribel commented that Envy seemed to be in a good mood, and Envy replied that she simply could not stay still. Sakura observed that she had never seen Lord Arnold like this before and thought that his comrades must be very important to him. Suddenly, Sakura sensed something behind her. Maribel asked if she was already leaving, but Sakura continued following Arnold. After some time, they encountered and defeated several ogres. Sakura remarked that they were truly skilled at fighting in the forest. Envy replied that this was a daily occurrence for her, while Maribel added that ogres were nothing more than a warm-up. Arnold then took out his compass, looking confused by its reaction. Sakura asked what was wrong, and at that moment, a presence appeared behind her. She shouted that it was a greater demon, noting that there had been reports of its appearance, but not in a place like this. The greater demon stood completely still, and Sakura wondered why it was not moving and what could have happened. Suddenly, assassins emerged from behind. Envy called out to Sakura as one of them tried to strike her, but Envy intercepted the attack. Maribel wondered who these people were and tried to dodge their attacks, but she was struck. Envy questioned what was happening as her body stopped responding, and Maribel explained that it was a fast-acting paralytic poison. As Arnold was about to move, a voice called out from behind, warning him not to move. The voice stated that no matter how powerful a former Seven Master might be, it would be easy if they caught him off guard. He was told to come quietly or his comrades would pay the price. Sakura blamed herself for letting her guard down. Arnold noticed their equipment, tools designed to evade detection, along with claw-shaped magic tools with special effects, and identified them as a secret mission unit directly under King Descent. The group confirmed it. Arnold asked what they wanted with him, knowing that they specialized in dirty work such as espionage and assassination. Their leader replied that His Majesty still believed Arnold had value, and that his orders were to bring him back regardless of his will. Arnold recognized the man as a spy. Sakura questioned whether Descent intended to use Lord Arnold however they pleased, but the leader replied that she was no different from the people of Limbo. Arnold smiled and said he did not see it that way, and that she had come here of her own free will. The leader dismissed this, ordering Arnold to drop his weapons and obey, or his subordinates would die. Understanding the situation, Arnold agreed and threw his sword far away. The leader then demanded that he hand over his storage bag as well, knowing it contained unusual magic tools. Arnold complied, telling them to handle it carefully. The leader stated that since Arnold could no longer move, he would be taken before His Majesty, and then struck Arnold's arm. Arnold fell to the ground as Envy and Maribel shouted his name. The leader then ordered his men to eliminate the remaining subordinates, stating that the job was finished. Arnold calmly asked if that was really the case. The leader hesitated, confused, and asked what he meant. Arnold slightly turned his head and asked whether they truly believed he only had 2 subordinates. At that moment, Sakura watched in shock as a chain with a metal ball came flying from behind, slamming into the leader. Envy wondered what it was. Arnold calmly stated that the overwhelming presence he had sensed earlier was not from an assassin squad capable of hiding even from forest monsters. He added that he was glad they had finally met again, his new subordinate. It was Alulu.